Welcome to the biggest influences. This is the real Joe Rogan.
And there's no repercussions for promoting this false information.
No, I mean, she's rewarded for it.
And no one talks about it? It's never...
Well, I mean, we're starting to, right? But, I mean, I'll point out a couple other things.
But before the Twitter files, I'm sorry to interrupt,
No.
but you didn't even know, right?
Oh.
So most people don't know.
No. There's one guy we discovered, Matt Taibbi discovers him, and I only like a week or two before my testimony in Congress, which was a few weeks ago, not the one I did yesterday. We discovered this guy who was the head of cyber at the State Department, a senior guy named Mike Benz, and he is like super deep into this stuff. He's amazing. I highly recommend him coming on. But he runs something. He basically leaves State Department and starts something called the Foundation for Freedom Online, and he has been documenting this more than anybody. So he had it, but he's not. He's just really in the weeds. Like, it's really detailed. You have to really. It was hard to understand. You have to really go through it and unpack it. I used a bunch of it in my testimony. I talked to him. I interviewed him a lot. But I mean, basically a media blackout on all of this stuff. Renee DiResta, who then moves from New Knowledge to Stanford Internet Observatory, that organization and three other organizations, Atlantic Council, Graphica, and University of Washington has a think tank on this. They get government funding, and they run something called the Election Integrity Project in 2020 to basically demand censorship.
By the way, if I just read the Election Integrity Committee, I get super suspicious.
Oh, yeah.
just the name of that.
I mean, Joe, it's they basically would flag hundreds of millions of tweets. I believe that their database, they had over 1 billion social media posts, Facebook, Twitter, that they flagged, and tens of millions of them were censored.
Are they running? That's insane.
By the social media companies.
Are they running some sort of a program that allows them to find those tweets?
Yeah. You see it a lot. They do these maps. They have these maps where they locate the super spreaders. So like you and me would be super spreaders. Jordan, they attack me in this disinformation, these censors.
Really?
They have reports. They put like me, Jordan Peterson, Bjorn Lomborg, you, Ty. I mean, they put us in there. So anybody that has a big social media following, call us super spreaders. And then they try to get us censored, and they did for me. They got Facebook to censor me.
How so?
Well, when my book on the environment came out, Apocalypse Never, in 2020, I wrote an article that sort of summarized the book, as one does. It went super viral. Then one of these shady organizations attacked it, not for anything being wrong with it, but for it being misleading. They call it. It's the same way that they attacked the vaccine side effect stuff. They go, well, it's accurate, it's true, but it leads people to draw the wrong conclusions.
Right.
The wrong conclusion being that climate change is real but not the end of the world, or vaccines. The wrong conclusion would be maybe don't get the vaccine, or maybe if you're under 18, or you're young man under 18, or if you've had whatever it might be, you don't need to be triple vaxxed. So they're basically using an opinion, which is you should get the vaccine, or you should think of climate change as apocalyptic, as a way to, and then they kind of go through the back door and say anything that's being used to propagate that narrative should be counted as misinformation.
Jesus.
But just to back up, so this little cluster, this censorship industrial complex, does this quote unquote election integrity project in 2020. They censor tens of millions of social media posts.
And by censor, do you mean they remove them?
So by censor, where I'm going to use the definition that everybody uses, which is you can remove, you can reduce, or they call it inform. You can put a flag on it. That's what they do. Everything I do for Facebook now, almost everything I do, has a warning on it. Here's how to get accurate information about climate change. Go to the Facebook Climate Change Center. Even my stuff on homelessness and drugs, they'll be like, here's how to get accurate information on climate. That's how you know that I'm on some list. I'm on some blacklist at Facebook. So that's those three things. Those are all forms of censorship. Those these groups, which are U.S. government-funded organizations, this is very important to stress. This is not some private actors. U.S. government-funded organizations pressuring the social media companies to censor these posts and these people. And they do it in 2020. And then Renee, who does this little video, it's like one of the creepiest videos that we've discovered. There's little videos that they do. She's sort of describing, and then we realized that we needed to keep going on COVID. And so then in 2021, the Election Integrity Project turns into something called the Virality Project. And that's where they then go and wage censorship on COVID information that they don't like. I refuse to use their language. And again, it's tens of millions of people, and so you see it at all levels. It's these guys doing it. The censorship industrial complex is the right, I think, description of what we're talking about. It's a phrase that, of course, came from Dwight Eisenhower's famous farewell address that he gives. He goes, look, you got to worry. The DOD is funding all these private military contractors. These private military contractors have a financial interest in war. Yeah. This is Eisenhower, the guy that won World War II. I mean, it's like Mr. Credible on this issue. And he was like,
speech.
This amazing, beautiful. I mean, it's really the best of what a president can be. And he warns against this. It's this complex. It's this kind of clustering of government agencies and government-funded groups. So it's in the case of the censorship industrial complex, it's the Department of Defense, it's the State Department, it's FBI, it's CIA, it's Department of Homeland Security, funding these so-called think tanks, and they're sometimes they're at universities or sometimes they're standalones. Some of them are in Britain, by the way. There's a very special relationship with the U.S. and Britain. Often the U.S. the U.K. think tanks right now are attacking me, trying to discredit me. So sometimes they'll go that way. They'll try to
attacking you. How so?
Well, they just put out a report. These guys are the worst. They put out this long report describing climate disinformation. And I was as soon as I opened it up, I was like, fuck, I bet I'm in this. And I just do Command F, and I just search Shellenberger, and sure enough, it's multiple results. I'm like, crap, And so they often these are reports that they don't get a lot of fanfare or whatever, but they make sure that they get emailed to a bunch of journalists. They talk to the journalists, and they basically just emphasize, never talk to this person, never quote this person, do not platform them. We then, by the way, after our testimony, that same Stanford cluster, it's actually more than one group at Stanford even, they emailed, I'm not going to say who because I don't want to give away my sources, but they've basically emailed many people about Matt and my testimony, trying to attack our testimony and sharing information. So they're just the creepiest. They creep around. They're constantly waging disinformation campaigns against disfavored voices and demanding censorship while also spreading their own misinformation.
God, it's so creepy that that the people doing this don't understand how deeply un-American this is.
Yes.
And that they feel like it's okay to do because the side that they're on is the right side.
You got it. Got it. It's un-American. I mean,
it's so un-American.
I mean, Joe, it's funny because so I graduated from high school in 1989. I remember distinctly that was the year that the Supreme Court upheld your right to burn a flag. And I remember just being like, God damn, that's why I'm a Democrat. That's why I'm a liberal. I think you should be able to burn a flag because I think the First Amendment's literally from that moment on, I have never worried about the First Amendment in the United States. For me, it was always kind of basic. Come on, guys. It's the First Amendment. How could it possibly be under threat? This was one of the few times where, because I don't spook super easily, but reading this stuff, you're just this is scary.
It's so
these
pervasive.
People are scary. And you may know, by the way, when Matt Taibbi and I were testifying before Congress a few weeks ago, the IRS agent shows up at Matt Taibbi's house in person.
Yeah.
This is insane. The Wall Street Journal just wrote a piece about it a few days ago. I was I'm look, hey, maybe it's a coincidence, whatever. I was just asking around people I know, and people were like, no way is that a coincidence. So this is brazen. These guys are trying to send a message. They're trying to intimidate. They want to ruin our. I mean, for me, it's been years of just trying to survive. Of just trying to deplatform, discredit, keep you off of out of newspapers, out of TV shows, out of whatever, podcasts. And so, yeah, these guys they're ruthless. It's definitely a hall monitor mentality, and it's elitist. I mean, it's like Renee is a snob. I'll just, I agree with her on some things. I'm sure she's a fine person in her personal life. She's probably a good mother. I mean, I don't have any, I'm trying to
be nice.
I'm trying to be Christian about this. But I mean, they're snobs. Like I remember at one point I briefly asked her about climate change, and we talked about the climate stuff, and I could tell that she felt like she was actually probably an expert on that too. It's like literally I wrote my book. I spent 20 years of research going into my book. Fine, maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, like you have journalists out there, Joe, at like all these big publications. They're like 23 years old, and they're like, I'm a disinformation expert. I mean, can you imagine being like, I'm a truth expert, Joe? I'm a truth expert.
That's really what it is, truth expert.
You're a malign actor and a vector of disinformation, whereas I'm a truth expert. So there's definitely that whole, that Jordan Peterson stuff talks about, where it's just like, I'm just pure and good.
And it's reinforced within the group, right? This is a very tribal thing.
Super tribal.
You have these ideologies that these people subscribe to.
Yep.
But it's so disturbing as a person, who grew up liberal, to see this from the left, this hardcore censorship from the left, and this support of government disinformation that's purely aligned with monetary reasons. It's just about money. I mean, that's the only reason why they would be doing this.
Subscribe to Biggest Influences today.